This morning, as I was reading my devotional, I actually came across a scripture from First Peter 4:16 that said, "Yet if anyone suffers as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify God in this matter." And um, I actually started to share on Facebook, and for some reason, the message as I wrote it and was about to end it and post it just completely went away and went back to the Bible app. And, you know, I had it in my spirit to share, share verbally and maybe just expand on what it is that I was saying. And it was pretty much that as a Christian, or rather my thoughts of being a Christian as I was growing up, was that, being a Christian was about trading in the things that you enjoy for, I guess, godly things, going to church, getting married, having a family, maybe serving in a ministry, just the things of God. I thought that, being a Christian would be a very peaceful existence. Um, the reward being heaven, and that was what it was all about. And I'll be very honest with you. I was not ever really thrilled about that because it just seemed like boring to me. Even the thought of heaven, it didn't, I'm not going to say it didn't appeal to me. It definitely appealed to me far more than the alternative. But I guess what I'm saying is that there was just something that must have been missing inside of it, just something that was just missing. I guess because we have become accustomed to having a little bit more of an eventful, existence. And so I learned, through having the opportunity to see inside of the life of a spiritual leader that, oh no, people suffer. People go through things that you couldn't even imagine. And I'm thankful to God because even in me witnessing that, I never thought anything about the person. I definitely didn't feel like, oh, that they're being punished or why they're going through so many things. And the things that he went through, and I'm talking about really being without his own place, but still working and serving the Lord, struggling financially. I mean, having to deal with unfaithful spouse, just embarrassment, just a lot of things that, even if I speak them, I don't think that they would even express the magnitude of the amount of suffering that I've seen him go through. But one thing that I would say is that in seeing him go through the things that he went through, I just saw that, no, living this life is nothing about, not suffering, even though that was just the one person, so I still kind of didn't completely grasp the concept of everyone suffers and it's not just about you. So, you know, um, I went through life and, I had a really long struggle with my walk with Christ. I had one foot in and one foot out for a long time, and at some points, both feet out, and at some points, both feet off the ground because God was obviously carrying me because I don't know where I was or how I got through anything that I was even in. But, when I decided to kind of more firmly plant my feet, on the ground, it was like I began to go through things and, being more of a witness for the Lord. And I would say most recently with the things that I've experienced in my job, I had a moment of concern because with the women that are closest to me at my job, you know, it had became obvious that they seen Christ in my life. Like it was just something obvious that they had seen that was now, the walk that was becoming clear, in the eyes of other people for me. And so when they were with me when I accepted my call into ministry, actually one of the ladies, I performed her wedding, and, and they're close to me. And then it was like all of a sudden they saw me go through what I began to go through at work. And I was a little bit embarrassed. Like, not really embarrassed because it wasn't nothing that I did, but I'm like, Lord, like, well, what kind of an example is this of following you? Okay. But yet I'm suffering in the way that I'm suffering. Like, in a way, I wasn't happy about it because I felt like, God, you've used me to obviously be an example or to touch or affect them, and they have really touched and affected me. This definitely worked both ways. Definitely have been such an encouragement to me and actually pushed me into a lot of the things that God would even have for me. So it definitely works both ways. But for them to see me make this commitment, dear God, to follow Christ and to accept this call, and then yet to go through the suffering that I'm going through, I didn't know how to feel about that. I felt really kind of uncomfortable about that because I was concerned that it would not make them want to choose this life. It would not make them want to, walk in their own call at some point if they felt like, well, if I do that, then all hell breaks loose or I begin to suffer. And I felt really bad. But one thing that would happen is, as they began to like really experience the pain that I was going through at work, because it's been pretty painful, or it was pretty painful at that, when we were in the thick of it. It was like, I realized my opportunity in it to glorify God. They see me cry. They see me, get very frustrated. My last day at work, one of the girls just so happened to be outside. She sat in the car and just heard me just scream from the frustration and the hurt and being tired from what I was dealing with at work, and but one thing that I did see is that I had the opportunity to still give God glory, still give him praise, to hear, one of my girlfriends just still be encouraged and know that, she had to press through and even within their own self believe that I don't really see what's coming out of this. I don't even really know what's going on, but God is going to bless you in it. And just to see how I responded in it, that I wouldn't curse the people who were coming against me, that, yeah, they saw me get concerned. They saw me get down. They did a lot of things that they witnessed, but I didn't curse them. I still gave God glory. I still got up. I still pressed through, and I was so thankful for the opportunity to do that, because that's only by the grace of God that I was able to do that. And one of the things that I would say have became like my slogan, or, like this banner, you know, it has been, I still rather be on this side of suffering. And what I meant by that was only that I don't like the place that I'm in. I didn't like the things that I went through with my job. It makes me very uncomfortable. It made me unsure. At some points, it made me question, just everything. Like, God, what are you doing? What are you allowing to happen? I thank God for his word. I thank God for the people around me that were able to really just pour into me at those times, because this has just not been easy, but the thing that I'm so thankful for is that I kept saying I still rather be on this side of suffering. no matter how much it appeared that these women at my job were winning, and I've seen them be promoted and promoted just to cause my suffering, it seemed. I would have never wanted to trade places with that. I still would rather be on this side of suffering, because this is where God is. This is where the Spirit of the Lord was. And I could see the Spirit, because even in my response, even in my support, the things that I was being surrounded by, I mean, that's all the Spirit of the Lord, even though it was the side of suffering. And I'm just really thankful, and even more thankful that I did not have it in my heart to want to cause somebody else to suffer, to not have what I believe is the love of God, to give someone the grace of, just making their burden light, or not, being evil towards them, or whatever it is that they were doing. I was just thankful that that wasn't my heart, and that's all I could really say. I was just really thankful that that wasn't my heart, because that's grace. That's a gift. That is definitely not my personality. That is not even necessarily my will. That's not our nature. Our nature is to get back, get revenge, or even get ourselves out of the situation at the least, but that just wasn't where I was. And so I still had rather been on this side. And, that was one part of it. But, the other part of being on this side was, I had began to just see it differently. I began to see it different, to see that, oh no, I'm not defeated because I'm suffering. No, but I am in a process. And, and I know that God's will is for me to be victorious, not be victorious, but I am victorious. He already know the ending of this. I don't, and that's why I guess it's so painful for me. I guess that's why I had so many days of crying, because I would lose sight, that, do I not realize the God that I serve? That my suffering will not be for nothing, not at all. That's not what the suffering is about. There's so much strength that comes from the suffering. There's so much growth that comes from the suffering. There's so much God's will, comes from the suffering. I mean, just look at Christ's suffering, and there was so many times that I had to go back, and everyone knows that I am not a scripture quoter. That's really just not my gift, but I can get into a story and almost connect with the person inside of the story, and just to think of, what Jesus must have been feeling, and I still can't imagine, but just to say, but God, if you would take this cup from me, but like not my will, but thy will be done. Like I don't really want this, that's how I see it. I don't know if that's the interpretation, but I don't really want this. And that's just something that I'm expressing. However, it's not about me. It's about your will, and thy will be done. And Jesus, what kept him going was knowing that what he went through was for God's purpose. And the thing about it is, and I'm just so thankful to God. I had a discussion with my children's godfather this weekend, and he told me that we need to start going after the will of God, the heart of God, the heart of God, which is his will, instead of going for his hand, which is where we want to be blessed. And it's like, I honestly, in this time, I could honestly say that in my walk, I mean, whether I was stumbling, falling, walking straight, whatever, I could honestly say that in 17 years, I don't think I ever really was living for the will of God. I was really living for the blessing of God. Honestly, my whole perception of Christianity obviously was just about the blessing. Like I said in the beginning, I thought that you give up your life, and you live this life of contentment, I guess, being provided for, having a husband, having kids, going to church and being content. And, God will bless you with these things. Even as I walk, it's like I'm always asking God, can you bless me with this, bless me with that? Even in my present situation, because I'm at a point where I don't know what is ahead. I am stripped at this point of any certainty in my life. The people at my job, they're not paying me, my full salary. I'm realizing that, I don't know at what point it's going to be cut off. I can almost be certain that at this point I'm not even going back, and I'm thankful to God because I no longer see it as they did something to me, but this is where God has me, and He has me here for a purpose. But one of the things that I was struggling with was that I kept asking the Lord to bless me. I kept asking him to bless me with the promotion, bless me with this, bless me with that. Well, bless me to pay my bills, bless me with another opportunity, bless me with this, bless me with that. And I was never, ever considering his will. You know, Definitely not living for his will, but even this that I'm dealing with would be his will, and his purpose, for my life, because this wasn't my will and it wasn't my purpose. And I wanted God to bless me for my will and my purpose instead of sacrificing my will and my purpose for his will and his purpose in my life. That has been what I'm learning, okay, in this. And that, I asked the Lord to make things clear for me. That's what I had asked of him. Lord, I need you to make things clear for me. And when I was asking for him to make things clear for me, the clarity for me when I was asking this, I still thought would come in the form of another blessing. Well, if it's another job opportunity, make it clear for me by making a job opportunity come. Or if it's a financial thing, make it clear for me by letting these finances come. Just still after his hand. And, you know, I I don't know what I was necessarily asking for when I asked him to make it clear for me. But I will say this. He made it clear for me. He made it clear for me because he would give me, the conversation with my children's godfather to show me the difference of seeking his will and just seeking his blessing. That was the first lesson. And, and just getting up and just walking, just do it, and everything else would be added to me. The blessings will come. But, you got to have that heart. You got to seek after God's heart. And I wasn't doing that. I wasn't doing that at all. I really wasn't. And I'll be honest with you, it wasn't intentional. That just wasn't the level where I was. I had not learned that. I had not reached that place yet. And so now it's like, okay, well, I'm being introduced to that place. Um, but I still don't necessarily know what that's like or how you get it done. Like, okay, I could get up and walk, and I could walk in the things that the Lord has been pouring into me, the things that went early in the morning, has been coming to me, just moving forward in those things instead of worrying about the things that I don't have and the things that I do want. Just getting up and walking in the things that God is giving me, even if I don't understand why He's giving it to me. But I will say this, even the next day, He would allow me to get more answers. It became more clear, and I'm thankful. I'm so thankful to God because I was on my way to church, and you guys know that I, by my sharing, that, I am at a point like we're living off of manna, at this point. I guess we technically always do, but I'm realizing that we have just enough, and I have to learn to trust God because all that I had, um, it was no good for this season, and right now I'm, walking in a daily blessing of manna, God providing for me, God giving me what I need, which is enough for today. And so, what happened was that I was on my way to church on Sunday, and I had $50 that belonged to me. It was a $50 bill, that someone had given me, and I hadn't broken it yet. And, this is all the cash that I have, and, that belongs to me. And then I had $4 in my pocket that actually belonged to my husband. And that was changed from something. And I know he wasn't looking for it back, but that's just kind of the way that I work in my head. So when I was on my way to church, to the church that I attend regularly, um, it came to me that, or what I was dealing with in my head was, I don't know what I'm gonna give. Well, I'm not gonna give my $50 as an offering. And, this is not a tithe, but, just as an offering, well, because that's like all I have really. And, well, maybe I could give him my husband's, $4. And I felt a little bad about that. And then I even, in my head was, well, don't give anything. You do give, you will have a heart, to give it when you have it, but why you gotta give them anything, and then it went even further. Well, church is not, why we gotta pay the service? Why do you feel that every time you walk through the church doors, you gotta pay, and I mean, I'm going through this stuff all in my head, and I'm like, yeah, I don't, God knows that we don't really have it, and, He knows. And so I was getting ready to go in there now. I'm thinking, shoot, I'm not even going to take my wallet in there, because if I take my wallet in there, I don't want to feel pressured into giving, what I don't have pretty much. And then it was like, I mean, because I'm having these thoughts, and I guess it will be reflective of, on the TV they used to show like the angel and the not angel, on the other side. And it's just like, I'm having this whole discussion, not even realizing what's going on. And then I'm like, I'm going to leave my car and my wallet inside of the car. Why even bring it in? But there was in that back of my head that knew that obviously that wasn't right, because if I felt at peace with not giving, even though I feel like, well, God knows my heart and I don't have, but if I'm really at peace with not giving, what would be the issue with bringing a wallet in? Why? Why wouldn't I bring the wallet in? And, I had to be thankful, but how the Lord dealt with me in that very moment was, even though I was in the parking lot of the church, getting ready, all I had to do was step out and walk in. He put it in my heart to go to this other church, that I had never been to. I just knew the pastor. He's invited me a few times, but I'd never been. And I looked at the time, and it was about 11:30, and their service starts at 11, and I probably had a ways to drive. But that's what the Lord said, and I followed it, and I went. So Thankfully, when I got there, the pastor hadn't started preaching, but when he did, he said that he was going to preach on a topic that he had not preached on in a long time. And so the topic was giving. And I'm like, oh Lord, like, okay, all right, it's giving. And so I'm thinking, it's going to be the same message about tithes and offering, but it wasn't about tithes and offering at all. It was about love. And, where does love come from? It comes from the heart, and it was so funny because, just to paraphrase what this pastor taught on, he talked about how, the true evidence of the Spirit, it is love. It's not about speaking in tongues, it's not about doing whatever it is that you could do. At the end of the day, it's about loving. And, it's like the act of love is given, and he took us through quite a few scriptures in the Bible, and even with John 3:16, he said, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son," and he just showed that when you love, you give. And that brought me back to, well, first let me say, in that thought, I didn't feel that it was just monetary that he was speaking of. That wasn't what I got from it. But it brought me back to a time when I used to always hear Elder Fulbright say, his definition of love meant, I will do for you. And when you do for somebody, you're giving. No matter how you do it, no matter what you're doing, you have to give in order to do. And he used to always say that. And not only did he say that, he lived it. I've seen it. That was just his heart. He had love and he gave. He gave himself. He gave his time. He gave his talents. He gave his finances. He gave. He gives. He still does. He doesn't say it, but he does it. And one thing that I could say, and this is why he's he's almost like the only real father that on earth that I have a relationship with, is because I know that he loves me, and he's always shown me because he's given. He's given me his time. He's given me his patience. He's given me his knowledge. He's given, and he will admit to you that there were times that given to me was a challenge for him because, I was giving nothing in return. Nothing. And so here it is, these years later, I'm sitting here and I'm listening to this pastor talk about that, you love, and the act of love is given. And he said, he said, you have to have a heart. It's not about having, the things to give, but actually having the heart to give. You will have people who, have all the money in the world, but if they don't have the heart to give, they're not giving any of it. And then you'll have the people who have, like the little widow, who doesn't have a lot, but her heart was to give it all, and you have that. And he says something that I've never heard anyone say before. He said, when a person dies, what are they remembered for? When was the last time you ever heard somebody died and remembered for all that they received? No, they're remembered for what it is that they gave, because that's the true act of love. And then it was like, wow, wow. And he said, you have to give. And he went on. I don't want to preach this man's sermon or anything like that, but it has to be shared. It has to be shared because it just gave me such a whole different perspective. And more of what he said was, not only did he said, consider, Elijah, when he went to the widow, he said the widow had the last little bit of her, her meal, her flour and her meal and her oil, and the last little bit that she had, and she said, that she and her son was going to eat the last of it and then they would die. He said, because that's what happened. When you don't give, you will die. You don't give, that was it. She had nothing else if she gave the last of what it was that she had. But because she gave, she didn't die. She didn't even run out. She gave, she gave, and that was what it was about. She gave. And, I guess, in some ways, maybe I'm like her. Maybe I'm like her because I'm not going to say that, I don't know where I was. I can probably say that I looked at what I had and, looked at it as we figure out what we do with it and with no even hope because I guess I wasn't given and I was so scared to let go. I didn't even have hope. I didn't have hope. And if you don't have hope, it's like you have nothing. And I didn't have hope. I didn't have faith in what it is that God would do. I wasn't even willing to really, I wasn't comfortable, let me say, with obviously giving up the last that I had because obviously, I had a lack of faith, and, I'm just so thankful because I'm thankful for what God was giving me because the way he put it, he said you have to plant the seeds in order for your harvest to grow. And he said that in a way, he said, if a farmer goes into a field and it could be the most spirit-filled anointed farmer, and he could pray up and down that field and he could have, anointed oil and he could pour that oil up and down the field and he could speak in tongues up and down the field. But when it comes time, there will be no harvest if there was no seed. It doesn't matter. All of those things, there will be no harvest if there was no seed. And, and he said things can grow from even the smallest seeds, but there will be no harvest if there was no seed. And, one thing that I, and I had a small seed. I didn't really know. And I know it's not just about money and, and my heart changed, that day because my perspective changed. But what I saw in all of that was more about the love and about the heart and about God's heart and God's love and where my heart and my love was. And I can honestly say that I had never really been in that place of really getting to know the heart of the Lord, and even me having a heart within myself to give of myself and to do his will. I didn't. The Lord gave me gifts, maybe. I feel, I don't know, a little, I don't know, I like a little insecure in some things, but I guess the Lord gave me gifts. He gave me ideas if nothing else. He gave me ideas if nothing else. And but I won't give back to him. I won't give back to anybody. I've taken those ideas, I've taken those thoughts, I've taken those talents, and I've stored them up. I won't give them up. I won't plant the seeds with them. I haven't done that. I've talked about it, but I had not done any of it. And I'm like, wow, wow, wow. Like I've been like that little widow. And, then he used, the analogy of, or the story of the ravens by the brook. And, that's the name of my ministry, Ravens by the Brook, because the Lord had gave me, like, he will give. It wasn't the nature of the ravens to give. It wasn't the nature of them. But when God pours his spirit into something, that's when you have it. And I thank God for blessing me, with those things, because I learned that in this season, and I was getting ready to say in this season of suffering, but I don't I can't even call it suffering uh, because of the blessing, that's coming from it. And, it's, it's so worth it because my heart is different. My heart is different. Um, I'm working on a book right now, and in the book, and I started working on this book 2 years ago, and so I'm just like reading over some of the things that I wrote even 2 years ago, and one of the biggest questions that I had was, can God change your heart? And I'm learning that in these events that God is changing my heart, and that right now I am thankful because I want to know more about his heart. I want to know more about his heart. I want to give more, and I want to go after his heart, and be thankful and give what he's given to me, and you know, I keep saying with the series, I don't know how this is gonna end. I don't, or what the progress in this will be, but I will say that I'm so thankful, for where I am and what he's given me on this day, on these days, for the clarity. And a lot of times we ask God for things and we want these things, but in chasing after his hand is more so about the things that we want. But we got to chase after his heart and live after what it is that he wants for us. And that's the blessing. And so, that's the glory of God. And I'm just so thankful to him. I'm thankful for him. And I understand just a little bit more, that I don't have nothing to be ashamed of for my suffering, but I'm a glorified